Thank you so much, guys. And we're really excited about debating what is the hottest topic of the second half of 2020, the CEXs versus the DEXs. We've seen on crypto Twitter a bloodbath, people debating on who should be the winner, who will be the winner in the future. And guys, don't forget to comment in the live chat, debate with yourselves as well, meet each other, connect with people. It's very important that we make this as interactive as possible. Gentlemen, if you disagree with each other, don't hesitate to do that, because we know iron sharpens iron, and it's really by debating that we can really refine our ideas. So to kick off this debate, obviously we know that the DEXs have really come from a few million US dollars of 24-hour trading volume to over $1 billion in a single day, accounting for up to 18% of all trading volume in crypto. And a lot of people are saying that the DEXs will take over the CEXs, as we say. So gentlemen, if we can kick off with you, Josh, my dear friend, how are you seeing this battle? What is your impression so far this year?
Hey, Alex. Yeah, great to be here. Thanks for having us, and thanks to the organizers. I mean, it's a fascinating tale, isn't it? DEXs have kind of come from the shadows out into the open and have suddenly become the flavor of the year. And, personally, this is something that we thought would absolutely happen at some point. And I think the key driver for this is usability, making DEXs usable to the average person. And that's taken a long, long time. Previously, to be a user of a DEX, you've got to be pretty tech savvy. You've got to be able to, really manage your own keys in the right way, integrate the wallet that you're using with the decentralized exchange. And it's all very tech heavy and quite intimidating for your average person. That's been slowly changing this year. So we've seen DEXs really evolve into something that are, nearly as usable as a centralized exchange. So it's been a fascinating year for DEXs. It's certainly going to get bigger and better for DEXs, I believe, as people work on UI, UX and really make the DEX experience as good, if not better in some cases, than some CEXs. I always feel funny calling them CEXs, but seemingly people are using that word now. So I'm going to start using it now as well. So seemingly, I think, DEXs and their experiences are getting better and better, and that will be a trend that we see continuing this year. So bring it on. I think, it's going to be good for the industry as a whole. And frankly, it grows out all the options that users have at the table to be able to trade crypto as they see fit.
Beautifully put, Josh. And Sam from FTX, do you agree with this UI, UX and usability? Is that what Uniswap brought to the space that made this, such a big trend?
I don't think so. I think that UI and UX are super important, but I don't think we're there yet. I think that and I think it's sort of hard to be there if 75% of your transactions are failing and it's taking 2 minutes and a few dollars to send an order. I think it's yield. Why did, DeFi seems like probably it was going to have a moment, in the end, no matter what. But what really blew it up, what really attracted so much capital to it was the yield on it, was the fact that you could, stake capital and get high returns on it. And, where is that coming from? I think there's sort of two different stories you can tell there. One story, sort of the pessimistic story, is it's all sort of bullshit. It was all sort of just a sleight of hand. There's a bunch of worthless tokens dropped on people. They did a dance for a few months to collect the worthless tokens as they dropped to zero. And then everyone's going to decide that was stupid and go back to what they're doing before. Maybe the more favorable take on it was that a lot of immensely valuable protocols gave away a significant fraction of their tokens sort of for free to users of their platform in order to encourage platform growth. And that was, in fact, whatever, $5 billion worth of value given away. And so, yeah, of course, that spurred a lot of growth. It was extremely heavy investment from the projects in their protocol growth. And that left a way more active DeFi ecosystem. But one way or another, it's heavily incentivized volume and value locked, and these numbers are not sustainable when the yield goes away. Already, we've seen volume numbers start to drop as returns drop, and if returns drop too much more, then you'll see total value lock drop. But overall, I think that like it was an enormous marketing win. I think it was not a huge win in terms of product development so far, at least. Although obviously, I'm sort of optimistic that Serum and some other things can bring what the experience that a lot of the current tools don't have.
Very well put, Simon. It's getting exciting already, guys. Don't forget to drop your opinions in the live chat. It's very important. We already have 2 confronting opinions. Jay, what are your thoughts on what has been said just now?
Hey, kind of agree with Sam, but I would probably use different term. As I say, what the most important fact to make a DeFi product success, I would suggest 3 keywords: liquidity, liquidity, and liquidity. So yes, I agree. And Sam said, yes, it does bring users to DeFi and the DEX, but to be honest, it will be for short term, especially with those crazy, unrealistic years. But how to remain those users for a long term? I think liquidity is the most important things, and also followed by user experience. So back in 2017, because Loopring is a DEX native project. So back in 2017, when I was doing my roadshow, I asked the conference room how many people have been used DEX, and put your hands on. Pretty much, like sometimes 0, sometimes 1 out of 100 people have been used the DEX. But now, when I ask people how many have you been used DEX, pretty much 90% of people raise their hands. So I think the AMM is the great innovation, and Uniswap really improved the AMM and bring into the next level. So right now, I think we need to improve the Ethereum infrastructure to bring more user to DEX. Yeah, that's my kind of takeaway.
Thank you so much, Jay. So open question for any of you guys, like what does the DEX need? You just mentioned, Jay, that liquidity is kind of the key component. What are some other limitations? What are some other kryptonites to this Superman DEX that you want to see being created as of next year? For instance, if you don't mind, anyone go ahead, who wants to kick off?
I mean, I think it really all comes down, if you look at current DEXs, to speed and efficiency and cost. And the reason I say that is that first, it's just fatally bad right now. Like it's just, 2 minutes per order, a few dollars, and high failure rates just can't scale. And that's even with really tiny usage. I mean, we talk about these exploding DEX numbers. They never got within 5% of centralized exchange volume numbers. They never got within 5% of centralized exchange user numbers. They never became a really big thing on sort of that scale, and they never got the huge amount of liquidity that some centralized exchanges have. And I sort of agree with Jay that liquidity is really key, but I think that like you can trace that back to why isn't, what has been the limiting factor on liquidity, and particularly on sort of like uncompensated liquidity, because you can get sort of temporary liquidity anywhere if you're willing to pay enough for it. But, in terms of long-term steady state, why isn't there more liquidity in DEXs? It's because it's fucking terrifying to provide liquidity if it's going to take you 2 minutes to cancel an order. And that's just like, and a few dollars, like that's just it's just like if you're not being heavily compensated, it would make absolutely no sense. And so while I agree that liquidity is a key thing here and that UI and UX are key things, I think you can just trace those down to like, why don't those exist yet in DEXs? And it's just throughput. Like, it's just like Ethereum DeFi's throughput is just not high enough to handle a sort of like exploding ecosystem. And I think that, it just, DeFi can't grow much more until, in fact, it'll probably shrink if anything, until some scaling solution is found, whether that's ETH 2.0, whether that's a layer 2, or whether that's a new faster layer 1.
Yeah, if I can add to that as well, I think that's absolutely spot on that, the infrastructure has to be fit for purpose. Otherwise, what's the point? If you're scaling a solution to provide, for example, an exchange environment for users, but they can't execute orders in a cost-efficient way, if the slippage is massive, if the provision of liquidity is fragmented and frankly doesn't make economic sense to the liquidity providers, you've got to ask yourself the question, how is this, at least in the medium to long term, how is this going to be economically viable? Is this more of an experiment than it is a long-term solution? And I think with any nascent technology, to cut the DEXs a little bit of slack, as with any nascent technology, it takes time, right? We're going to see iterations, and as Sam said, using various different solutions, whether it's ETH 2.0, all these different layer 2s that are out there. They're going to be, teething problems with this. And until it makes economic sense for the average user to do their activity on a DEX versus a CEX, why would they do that in any larger scale than they're currently doing? And I think lots of people are doing it now because, from a philosophical perspective, it's an interesting exercise. You own your own keys, you trade in a decentralized environment. It fits the philosophical narrative that a lot of people have when it comes to crypto, but that ain't going to take it mainstream. So fundamentally, the infrastructure needs to progress and improve. And lots of people are working on that, and it will take time. But absolutely, I think for the DEX space to improve materially, the infrastructure that the DEXs are run on needs to be fit for purpose. And the large majority of DEXs that are out there at the moment are almost kind of proof of concepts. They work to a certain extent, but they don't work versus, or when you benchmark that against the CEX and you try and work out which is better. Obviously, in 90% of the cases, a centralized exchange comes out on top.
That's really well put. Jay, do you agree with this, that in terms of the DEXs, one of the biggest flaws at the moment is the trading technology, the execution systems, as the gentlemen were just saying right now?
Yes, I do. But I just also want to mention that Blueprint is working on a scaling solution. We are using the ZK rollup to scale up the Ethereum TPS from 15 trades per second up to 3,000 trades per second. And we are also the first DEX on layer 2 and launched in February this year. I remember I replied Sam's Twitter once, I think back a few months ago, and I say here we go, we have these scaling solutions, why we don't try it out? And Sam asked me why there's still no liquidity, no assets moving from layer 1 to layer 2. Back then I say I don't have a fancy answer, but I've been talking about to a few other DeFi projects, especially those top ones. And also I was in a layer 2 panel yesterday. And so we have some kind of conclusion, because right now we have different kind of layer 2 options, scaling solutions, optimistic, OMG, ZK. Even in ZK rollup, we have different solutions. But all in all, maybe we should start to work on with like a crypto wallet to help them to onboard on layer 2. So which will help us to get mass adoption, mass user, and help them to move from layer 1 to layer 2. And another approach is to working with those top DeFi project, because they already have the volumes, since Uniswap, Curve, and Synthetix. Those one already have been working with layer 2 solutions because they already have volumes. I do believe their users, their customers will follow up, will start move their assets from layer 1 to layer 2. It just might take time. And also back to Josh's questions, private keys and all those things. I think there's also solutions there. As long as the technology issues, I think it can be solved, just a matter of time. We have the smart wallet will help us to manage all the private keys. We just need to log in the wallet with the private with email and the and mobile phone. So all the private key will be managed by the smart contract. It's not perfect solution yet, but we see the potentials there. I think about like a sort of combination with a smart contract, layer 2 DeFi, kind of a combination. So it will be kind of like it will bring a really good user experience to our future users. Maybe it's something for the external world. Just like think about PayPal just launched the PayPal crypto wallet. It's centralized wallet. You just log in with your email and password. It will be the same things, but it's non-custodian.
That's a really good point. You just talked about a combination, Jay, and I think that is the best segue to the final question. So guys, so far we talked about the rising of the DEX, the limitations of the DEX. Let's talk about this combination that you were mentioning, Jay. Do you guys agree that eventually this will be the best of both worlds? It will be some off-chain, some on-chain, some centralized components, some decentralized components. And what is to you the perfect solution of the future? How would you merge it? How do you see this happening, a combination of a CEX and a DEX in the future? Josh, if you could please share your thoughts first.
Sure. Yeah, I think this modular approach makes perfect sense. Lots of people look at centralized versus decentralized as black and white. One's going to be better than the other. One has to be bigger and better and will always be the winner. It's just simply not going to work like that. There will, I think, be an emerging modular approach to centralized infrastructure being integrated with decentralized infrastructure, and they'll kind of work hand in glove. Of course, I think that there will be some people that will want to migrate fully into a decentralized environment and carry out certain activity, whether that's their trading, whether that's holding their assets, whatever it might be. Some people will naturally gravitate towards the centralized solution. But I think we are seeing the slow integration of the decentralized and centralized worlds in a modular fashion so that it actually works for users and consumers. You can't get people to use a product if it doesn't work well, if it doesn't seem user intuitive, if it's a pain in the arse to get someone onboarded and using it. So this modular approach, borrowing the best of both worlds, I think is a natural progression of the space. And we see this kind of so-called CeFi DeFi convergence almost taking place. And it, there will be that ability to choose one over the other if you want as a user, but within centralized environments, you'll have the ability to interact with decentralized environments and vice versa. So that I see as being a shade of gray as opposed to black or white decision. And we think that that's going to continue over the course of the next few months.
Beautifully put. Sam, what are your thoughts on that?
I have a lot of uncertainty, and I think that you could definitely imagine a world where there's sort of this nice integration of the two and a lot of things in between. You could imagine a world where DeFi kind of dies out and it's mostly CeFi. You could imagine a world where DeFi becomes huge and CeFi shrinks, and everything in between. And I think that there are substantial networking advantages to staying within one system. One thing I will say is that because of composability, a lot of the power of DeFi you only get if you're staying in DeFi. And I don't know what's going to happen. I think a lot of this depends on what products are built. I think a lot of this depends on, how well DeFi charges forward. Does it build great products? Does it fail to solve its current issues? I don't know the answer to that. But I think that's going to have a pretty big impact on how large a role it plays in the future. And I think that that's also a lot of how we're thinking about it. That I think Serum is our attempt to build a DeFi ecosystem that sort of is as powerful and scaling as we can, to try and build something which we think can bridge that, and can sort of offer the experience people really want. But again, we'll have to see what happens.
Awesome. Jay, your thoughts on this combination that you're mentioning earlier?
Sure. Well, I believe in the decentralized world. It's not like will happen anytime soon. It won't happen in my life though. But that's where my belief in. So I think especially maybe case by case, because in certain region, because the society or the nation is very very centralized, not say in certain areas they are not very developed. So maybe a decentralized financial product is good for them, but in a lot of well-regulated places, maybe centralized is a good way because they have very transparent systems. So a centralized system can help to protect them. But in those pretty much most of the world, I think decentralized decentralized financial product, especially blockchain, will help them to access different opportunities.
Thank you so much, guys. Don't forget to share your opinions in the live chat as well. Are you more on the CEX side, more on the DEX side? And tell us why, of course. Before leaving, one last shout out, your final kind of take of this debate here. Josh, if you can give us your last message, that would be great.
Yeah, I think, if we look at all of the controversy that's happened in the DEX space and the decentralized space this year, and we kind of dial down the noise a little bit, we've seen a lot of scandal, we've seen a lot of negativity, but we've also seen a massive amount of innovation. And that innovation is hugely encouraging because people are spending a massive amount of time, resources, brain power on building some pretty fascinating things. So, personally, and Binance as an organization, massively bullish about the decentralized space. We're going to continue to invest in it and continue to build out services that are decentralized, that people want to use, and hopefully are also a pleasure to use.
Awesome. Sam, yourself, final words?
Yeah, I mean, obviously sort of involved in a CeFi project, FTX, and a DeFi one, Serum, and I think they both have a lot of promise. I think that, and I think that, like, the one thing I'd say is just, like, there's a big difference between looking as far in the future as you can versus looking at what's going to be as successful as possible right now, and that there's a time and a place for both, but that the things that get quick adoption aren't always the things that get scalable adoption, especially right now in DeFi. And yeah, just a lot of what we've been thinking about with Serum is what do we need to do to build something that will scale? And I'm sort of like happy with how things have turned out and think that they're sort of like just have massive power compared to a lot of the other attempts.
Very well put, Sam and Jay.
I would just say both CeFi and DeFi are very beautiful. And as long as you're an advanced user, crypto native people, then you should start to use DeFi. Once you're on DeFi, you will never leave the DeFi world. But also, if you're not, CeFi is also a good try. The bull run will come soon, I reckon. And so just make sure you're on the run.
And I think that's a beautiful message to end this conversation and debate, guys. Do not attack each other. Do not be tribalistic. Both teams, CeFi, DeFi, are trying to build things to help mass adoption and help this space move forward. So very, very well put, guys. Don't forget to follow all of these amazing speakers: Joshua Goodbody at Binance, Sam Bankman-Fried at FTX, and Jay Zhou Loopring. My name is Alex Fazel, host at Kryptonice TV and Swissport. Thank you so much for watching, and continue to debate in the live chat so that you can all learn from each other. Thank you so much, guys.
Thanks.
Thanks,
guys.
Thank you, guys.